Gib, you ready to do this? Let's do some intros. I'm Coach Damon, Lax Goalie Rat. I'm here with Gib Versfeld. Gib, how you doing?
Coach Damon, I'm doing great. I've played goalie since second grade. I just graduated from Johns Hopkins. I previously played at Amherst College, and now I focus on coaching goalies, as much as I can.
There we go. So we're here today to talk about this bad boy right here, a new toy in the goalie world. It was sort of teased. And the reason I wanted to have you on, Gib, is you were one of the at Hopkins. You guys got sort of a sneak peek as to the STX Eclipse 3. It is here. Talk to me about your little sneak peek adventure and your experience playing with this bad boy already.
Definitely. I mean, we were blessed to have STX right down the road from us in Baltimore. And last November, our contact came over and said, "Hey guys, I've got this really cool head I want you to try out." And we started using it in November, and I've been using it ever since.
Love it. So when we talk about, let's talk about the differences between the STX Eclipse 2 and the STX Eclipse 3. And there's really two differences as I see it. Two main differences. Would love to hear your opinion. First difference we'll talk about is the throat. The throat is redone. It is not drastically redone, but certainly it's different than the STX Eclipse 2. So talk to me about this new throat.
Definitely. So the main difference, right on the top there, you've got the Eclipse 3, and then here's the Eclipse 2. Is Eclipse 3 is a little more streamlined in this area, in this V area. So instead of it being a little more drastic, it's more of a straight line from the shaft to the top of the scoop, or to the bottom of the scoop. For us as goalies, the biggest difference is our hands. When we hold it, it's going to be a smoother grip between the top of the shaft and the bottom of the head versus the Eclipse 2, which was more of a thicker grip that became wider sooner.
Yeah. One thing that's different too is this, and I think you can see it in the camera too. There's like a little nub of plastic right here on the front. And I guess the idea is you would sort of, if you're going to grip it, you would grip it right there, maybe even grip it with your second, your middle finger. Do you like that? How do you like that little nub? Because that's different than the previous model. Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly different. It's a little bit of nuance, that little nub he's talking about. I like it because my top hand kind of sits at the front here. So it kind of gives this landing point for me to hold. And, a lot of goalies kind of get caught up with the head twisted a little bit. And it's a good basis to help you make sure it's centered because it's just raised in that center piece.
Yep. You got the model that doesn't even have the STX letter. That's like the super secret model there, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's pretty identical.
Yeah. They just probably didn't, if a picture got out, maybe they were trying to keep it under wraps.
Exactly.
So yeah, so when I grab the 2, you can certainly feel like this one's a little bit, the new model is a little bit sleeker, and actually it feels, I like that feeling. So definitely like an upgrade in the throat area. It kind of looks like these things pop out a little bit more. Maybe it's just because the throat's slimmer, you can now kind of see that little outline a little bit more. Is that it?
Yep. And I think the big difference, right? And I don't know if you can see here on this one, on the Eclipse 2, it's a little thicker across the whole base, but here on the Eclipse 3, there is more of a indent behind the front of the head from here back. So your hand can kind of sit a little bit behind, the scoop, or the base, if you will.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think more and more companies are realizing that goalies, one, grab the throat, and not all goalies do, but a lot do. I mean, it's okay if you sit up here, but a lot of goalies do grip it up here. And two, like, it's almost interesting. It's like, I could almost even like tuck my thumb under there. I mean, that would be really cool in a goalie design if I could like, get some sort of thumb protection. So like, instead of having it exposed out here, I'm almost like tucked behind here. Have you tried that at all?
So, I've played around with it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's just personal preference, but for some goalies who have their hands wide, there's certainly space for you to have them tucked behind, and they'll be protected behind this plastic. It's really kind of unique design there.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. All right, cool. So anything else about the throat? I mean, that's pretty much it. Very solid throat. When I compare it to other heads, I wouldn't say like this one's tremendously better. I mean, it's a simple, sleek throat. And if you have that in your goalie head, you're doing well, right?
Exactly. I think easy transition from the shaft to the head, and makes it easy to use.
Cool. So the second thing then that they've really upgraded in this goalie head is this stiffness. And,
Yes.
like when as lacrosse goalies, like the stiffer the better, right? Because there's nothing worse than getting, a huge chunk of your head on a high speed shot, only to have that thing sort of bend. And when you look at pictures of goalies making when the ball makes contact with their stick, Gib, these sticks look distorted. They look weird. I mean, I've seen some of them that are just like literally almost bended back in two. And so to combat that, we really want stiffness. Like we want to make it as stiff as possible. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you about this head, because you've faced some of those high level shots. Talk to me about, the stiffness of this head.
100%. I mean, that's the biggest point. I think the biggest thing for me with the Eclipse 3 compared to the 2 is you make all the effort to make the save, and here with the Eclipse 2, if it flexes all the way back, I never had that with the Eclipse 3. Like I said, we used this for a couple months in a row with high level Division 1 shots, and it stayed pretty firm.
Mm-hmm.
So when I learned that could be the benefit, I mean, I was a big fan.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked with a lot of goalies just through, Instagram DMs, and this was back, when they were just trying it out, and they're like, don't name me, don't post anything, because we're still under wraps. And I'm like, don't worry. It's cool. But they were saying, like, if you get a piece of the plastic on the ball, and, in terms of the stiffness that we're dealing with this head, it's pretty much a save every time. Would you agree with that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially during the heat. I mean,
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
you will hit a point where you use it for a prolonged period of time. It's going to get a little flexible, but I mean, we were on the hot turf in Maryland, and it stayed pretty true to form.
Yeah. Now, is that the one you have there? You've had that for 6 months. You said you just played in a game last night. You told me, is it still holding up, or at what point do we get? Because you're right. Over time, any single head, I mean, these things are made of plastic, right? And like that constant wear and tear, you're going to need to replace it at some point. But how's yours doing so far?
It's doing great. It's still pretty firm. I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing is just maintenance. If you have a goalie head, maybe mix in your backup every now and then so that it balances out that impact and you get used to that as well.
That's a good point. Yeah. So you're not constantly doing wear and tear on this bad boy. It's kind of like rotating the wheels on a car, right? Like, keep it all even.
Exactly.
There you go. All right, cool. So those are the two main improvements, I guess we can say. Anything else?
Yeah, I share one other thing,
Yeah.
and it's related to the stiffness, but I think it's a sneaky benefit. If you look at the Eclipse 2 here, and if you look at the profile of the scoop, it's pretty straight up and down, right? And now if you look at the Eclipse 3, it's more of it's a little flatter, right? So any balls that are hitting the top of the head are getting directed into the pocket as well. So I don't know if you guys can really see that, but this is pretty flat. And if it bends, it gets pushes back. Where in the Eclipse 3, if it hits it, it's coming more inwards.
Interesting. I hadn't noticed that. So I was just doing some comparison over here.
Yeah,
Eclipse 3, which I have right here, is sort
correct.
of angled in a little bit more. And yeah, there we go. We can kind of get a view of it right there. Interesting. All right, cool. I like it.
Just directionally, if it ball hits the top of the plastic, I think it's going to go into your stick more versus, rolling off the top.
Yeah. So in terms of, what's the same, I mean, exact same face shape, right? Like they haven't really done much in terms of the face shape. You still have that, that classic sort of, I don't even know what you call it. It's like angled back, right? Like the Eclipse is angled, like here's the bottom. And if I draw a line straight up, right, there's a little bit of an angle back, whereas the impact literally like is just straight up and down. So you still have
Correct.
that, no change there. They did change the little sidewall design a little bit, and I imagine that's just to get a little bit more weight out of there, and maybe a little bit more strength. I'm not sure, but what do you call these things? The bridges, side bridges, are a little bit different.
Yeah, slightly different. I don't think it affects how we play or, how we perform.
Definitely not, but worth calling out, right?
Exactly. Definitely
All
worth
right.
calling it.
And then, I know you and I are not expert stick stringers, but I compared sort of the sidewall holes. And when you talk about like the face shape, I imagine, stringing this baby up is going to be the exact same as the STX Eclipse 2. I know Jack strung up your stick. Did he say something to that extent?
Yeah, I mean, he used the same pattern that I previously used in the old head, and I didn't notice any differences, so it looks to be the same.
Yeah. All right, cool. So one thing that's worth mentioning is this bad boy is sold out everywhere. At the time of this video. So we're recording this second week of August, and unfortunately you can't get this anymore. They're going to have more in stock at a certain point, but as of right now, you cannot get them. But what is the price point on this bad boy? I probably should have had that ready to go. Do you know, Gib?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yours was for free, yeah?
Mine was for free.
Okay.
It looks like $120.
120. Okay, 120. All right. I like to go to Lacrosse Monkey. That's kind of my go-to spot. All right. So STX Eclipse 2 unstrung, $100. STX Eclipse 3. Oh, theirs is out of stock. I think it was 120. So a little bit of a price upgrade, 120 unstrung. You factor in the mesh, you factor in maybe paying someone to string you up a nice pocket. You're looking at about $200, which is a pretty penny. Should, as a high school goalie, high level college goalie, what do you think it's worth the upgrade?
Ultimately, I think the stiffness makes it worth the upgrade.
You do?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And here's why, right? You use a head, you get comfortable with it, right? You kind of spend a lot of time breaking it in with a mesh, seeing a lot of different shots. And the worst thing that you want could happen is, it starts flexing on you at the worst moments. And it stayed pretty true to form. And that was worth the upgrade for me. It's why we used it.
Yeah. All right. So $120, you get that extra stiffness. I wouldn't say like the throat takes a while to get used to. Like I just grab it and I'm ready to go. So there's no adjustment there. What about throwing? I think throwing, to me, like I haven't played in collegiate games and collegiate practices. I've just played wall ball with it. It seems to me like the throwing is exactly the same. And of course, it's very hard to compare apples to apples because it's a different pocket and it's a different mesh strung by different people. So it's a little bit, and different levels of use. But have you noticed any differences in throwing?
So there's one minor difference, and it's going to relate to the scoop that we talked about, right? The Eclipse 2, it's a flatter scoop. The ball can kind of come straight off. Whereas the Eclipse 3, because it's a little more of this, offset, you do have to adjust the pocket so that it doesn't hit off the top of the head. And it's a very, very minor adjustment. But something to be mindful of as you string a stick.
Yeah, interesting. I know goalies that like that. They like that feel. So that's kind of a personal preference thing. In terms of like, they like to feel it hit the plastic before it leaves. Some
100%.
goalies don't. Some goalies don't.
And it could just be how I string my sticks too. It's all depends. It's relative.
Right. Cool. So there we go. STX Eclipse 3, $120. It looks beautiful. They got, if they got this really cool 3 chrome ball stop that comes with it. 1, 2, 3 Roman numerals. Looks really nice. I threw it strung up onto my kitchen scale, Gib, and
okay.
And I did the same with my STX Eclipse 2 as well. And again, that's not apples to apples, right? Because it's different mesh. It's, literally different mesh. This is the brand new mesh that STX also released as well, which maybe we'll do another review for one day. And this one has no shooting strings, but this one, I don't have the numbers in front of me, was a little bit lighter. So it's not like they added a ton of weight to the head. And what's your feeling of weight? It doesn't feel like all that much heavier, or even, it feels like the same to me.
I noticed no difference.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't expect any goalie to notice a difference.
Yeah. Well, there you go. $120. You can grab it on Lacrosse Monkey. As I said, not right now because they're all sold out. Which is amazing. It just kind of goes to show you the cult following that STX has at the moment. I mean, I saw maybe like one ad and it was like, here you go, it's available, and boom, it's sold out. So that's good when you can build up a brand like that. But one of the great, goalie heads in the game, the Eclipse, right? It's a classic. Final thoughts, Gib?
I think you can't go wrong with the Eclipse 3. It's stiff and reliable, and as a goalie, there's really not much more you can ask for. So I recommend trying it out.